The next component to which I'm hearing, I guess, from a lot of our labor leaders right now is kind of a protectionist Buy Canada. So, to be fair to them, they're looking at industrial policy, right? They're saying that we need a Buy Canada to save and protect Canadian jobs. But I actually want to take it another direction, right? We can't, and I don't think our job here is to reinforce nationalist sentiment, right? We've known what nationalism has done. We know the connection between nationalism and xenophobia, right? It's always us versus them. And in agriculture, where there has been a Buy Canadian policy, where agriculture has received subsidies, and some of our big so-called organic farms, such as Highland and Roland, which I'm going to talk a little bit later about, they receive money. They are supposed to be these models of Buy Canada. But there's no correlation with labor standards. There's human rights violations going all over this place. And I don't think it's our role to try to perpetuate and support capitalists in this process of exploiting racialized labor. So I think this is our critique of some of this Buy Canada stuff, is that really, what are we talking about? And who comes to define that experience? All right, so I will, I guess, continue with some of my rants, I guess, during the question and answer period. I want to get to three observations, because I've got 5 minutes left. And I guess the two fight back campaigns. And it involves two different groups of workers. One is a group of predominantly Thai women in Prestige Foods in a place called Whitley, Ontario. And the second group is a group of mushroom pickers, Guatemalan, Jamaican, Mexican, employed by an organization called Roland Farms. Now, my involvement with both of the organizations just happened by accident. With the Prestige Food workers, I'd heard about this place. Wheatley's close to Leamington, which is close to Windsor. And we'd heard that a group of Thai workers were living under quite drastic and horrible conditions. And up to, I guess, last year, we'd had no connection. We didn't really have the apparatus to work there. And lo and behold, a friend of mine who's involved with another organization, out of the blue, phoned and said, well, yo, this employer wants to meet, right? And he wants to talk about work permits. And I was like, where? He goes, this place called Prestige Foods. I was like, damn. I thought it would be a good opportunity, right? So the debate was, should we try to engage this employer, knowing that workers were there, or should we totally try to take a different direction? So after I guess some thought, I was like, look, this is a chance to try to meet some of these workers and to try to build a relationship there. So we went to this meeting with this employer. His name is Jose Pradas, and Jose is well known to Canadian authorities for various forms of infractions. So we went in and we just saw right there, what he was really interested in was trying to make sure to have that controlled labor force, to continue having these workers work under exploitative conditions. So watching his actions, knowing what he wanted from us, we didn't really I played a game. He didn't really know who I was, right? So I kind of just said I was working in a legal clinic. I didn't really go into what I do. If you check in Google, you'll find out what we do, but he obviously didn't do that. So after the meeting was done, through some of our other friends, we talked to the workers outside. And without the employer knowing, we kept meeting with these workers every week, just talking about some of the workers' rights, talking about some of the issues that we're facing. And lo and behold, some of the issues that came out within this one facility was just deplorable. These women were constantly under the threat or faced sexual assault and sexual harassment from their boss. The workers had a curfew. The workers' passports were confiscated. The workers were paid less than the Canadian workers. And in fact, at this point, we're estimating that this group of about 40 Mexican and Thai workers are owed over about several $1 million in wages. So we'd also known that this was a unionized facility. This was the CAW, Local 444. But they didn't really have any connection with these workers. And we'd also known that the employer had tried to use this in the historical way that they try to always use our peoples as union busters, right? So knowing about this type of historical legacy, we started working on the ground, and we knew that the vote for decertification, which means to break the union, was going to come up in a little while. So we worked with the workers, and when it came time to vote, challenge and discourse happened. Really, in fact, it was the migrant workers who saved the union. Right? Usually the Canadians come and rah, rah, rah. But the migrant workers and their action, their forms of resistance saved the union and kept that place as a unionized facility. And then all hell broke loose. Workers started getting fired. They started receiving threats. They were facing curfews more. And the employer was basically stalking these workers, following every move, driving around, just finding where they were. So it was quite a hellish experience for quite some time. And with the union becoming more involved, they decided to take the route of going to the police. And what happened at that stage was that the police actually put criminal charges on this employer for sexual assault. the Ministry of Labor came in to start looking at some of the working conditions. And then the housing conditions started to also be dealt with. So at this point in time, the employer has been banned from the workplace. The workers have received their passports back. And there's been some civility, and some of the workers who have returned to their, who were fired have returned to their work conditions. But the general crux of fear does still exist. The general position of temporary status still exists, and the millions of dollars that these workers are owed it still exists. Nothing has changed there too. So we're trying to develop the next leg of that campaign with those workers. And briefly, I guess, because my time is running out, is the Roland Farms. Now, some of you have noticed, I guess, that just before the holiday season, about 150 migrant workers from a large organic mushroom farm were fired, deported, evicted, and lost everything here in Canada. And our involvement with Justicia, we've been very peripheral. We haven't really been involved in any of the union litigation. We haven't been involved in the right to organize stuff. But a worker who was previously terminated from that space ended up on our doorsteps at the Workers' Action Center, and then he was referred to us as parked illegal. So we started building a relationship, and then one day we were supposed to just do some employment standards and employment insurance stuff within our office. And of course I was late. I'm always late to work. I'm late to everything. And I got this call that, you know what, there's like 10 workers there. I'm like, well, yo, what are you talking about? I was only supposed to speak with this one person. And I get there, and there's all these workers. We're like, well, guess what? We just got fired. And I'm like, well, how many are there? There's like 70. I'm like, sit there going, damn. And I brought in our lawyer, and he's like, damn. And just when we started hearing about these conditions, Roland Farm was also in the news, not only because it was the holiday season. They just lost a big right to organize case. So currently, at this little point in time, agricultural workers do have a so-called legal right to organize. So all this kind of contact was going on, and the employer felt it bold enough to try to fire all these workers. So we had a few community meetings, we had a community dinner with the workers, and we provided the workers with the options. And during the question and answer period, I'm going to tell you what these limited options are and emphasize a very destructive international organization called the International Organization Migration. So let's flag them. We'll talk about them a little bit later. But the workers decided what they wanted to do. Many of the workers did stay. Many of the workers are still fighting. Some of them have tried to apply for EI. Some people have been turned down for welfare. Others are working under the table. Many of them here persist and continue to strive and try to fight for their rights here in Canada. So I think just continuing this what we're hearing from all the panelists is irrespective of what the state throws, irrespective of what employers throw at us, people will resist, people will fight back. And as people who here have our status, not in a precarious position as them, it is our role to stand in solidarity, stand behind them in these struggles, and to help develop that support when they need it. Just a last point, I guess, just around the building bridges between indigenous communities and migrant workers. And I think there's tremendous opportunities. And I'm just going to state 3 points here in Ontario, for the work here in Ontario. One of our local chapters, the Friends of Farm Workers in the Chatham area, has been doing some work with the migrant workers and the various local communities there to try to build that bridge in the relationship between the indigenous communities, the migrant workers, and to try to do that common building. I know some infant steps have started there, but that's, I guess, an important model for us to look at. 2, with the whole Caledonia, the majority of the migrant workers in my area that I work with, I work in Tillsonburg, Simcoe, Delhi, Brantford. And we have about 7,000 to 8,000, 9,000 workers within that corridor. So I think there's an important place there to start and to try to build that education. With our workers, we're going to need to do the political work because their employers have been playing a lot of games, a lot of divide, and trying to pit, I guess, various communities together. So part of our work is to do that political education and to work and have that discussion. So I think that's important. Getting back to the Chatham community, we have common enemies. The same employers that are fighting against the land claims. These are the same people who you're going to see their signs. You know, this is our Canada. This is our property, right? This is their way of trying to say that this isn't our sisters and brothers, are their land, right? So those same people who are leading those fights against our sisters and brothers are the same people exploiting migrant workers. So I think there's another commonality that also exists. And third, that irrespective of the political work, we know that in Brantford and places like that there are areas where people do come together, come to meet, and trying to build upon some of that too, to try to infuse that conversation on resistance. So I think those are some important steps that I think the dialogue needs to continue. But just, I guess, a take-home message for each one of us is that, you know, this is very much stolen labor on stolen land. And irrespective of what, once again, they throw at us, right? Each one of us knows our role, it's our responsibility, and it's our duty to fight back. So let's keep it there. Peace.